You know, it really shouldn't be this difficult to explain something simple, but when I hit the record button, my brain just like turns off or something. Back in the shop, working on the tailor that came in for the twisted neck for the fret job, I found this crack in the heel when I took the neck off. It's a crack traveling in this direction along the wood grain of this heel block. What I've done is flooded the area with some thin viscosity super glue so everything sort of stays in place as I'm working. My long-term plan for this is to route a channel going perpendicular to the crack and perpendicular to the wood grain, and I will inlay a piece of mahogany with the wood traveling in this direction, the wood grain in this direction, and that will hold this neck heel together. I've picked a drill bit that is smaller than that layout line, and I'm going to use this to take most of the material out. So this is quite interesting. It seems to be an aluminum rod through there. I suspect that it extends farther back up here and farther this way. Here is my donor piece of mahogany for such purposes. I hardly ever get to use my shooting board. It took me a minute to find it. I was worried that I had dismantled it for the plywood. This little block is almost square, so I'm going to have to be careful. If I glue it in this way, then I'm going to have the end grain in the block facing towards me and the end grain in the filler piece facing towards me. So I need to make sure to glue it this way so that I've got end grain in the block that way, end grain in the filler piece this way. So I have marked the block to make sure that I don't glue it in the wrong orientation, and I'm also going to cut a little bit out of the bottom of this to make room around that aluminum that's already in the neck heel, so that I get as much long grain to long grain glue joint as I can. I have found that it always pays, if you're going to break out the wood glue, to figure out how you're going to clamp it first. So this has been trimmed back flush with the saw and the chisel, and the neck is good to put back on the guitar now. This guitar originally came with black tuning keys. Since we went with the gold fret wire, the owner has requested that we go with gold tuners. We got kind of lucky on Reverb. There was a guy in New York selling some gold Taylor tuning keys that came off the exact same guitar model. So there's zero modification to the guitar. All I've got to do is bolt these gold ones on, and we're ready to go. So there was a tuner for each side that was a little shorter than the others, kind of staggered tuners. And I couldn't really find information on the internet about where to put them, and I didn't pay attention when I took it off, but it makes sense to me that the shorter one should go on the two E's, as it should give a better break angle for the low and high E. So the short tuners either have to go here or have to go here, and I figured back here there's plenty of break angle, so the short tuners should be up here. This customer has requested that I replace the original nut with a bone nut. So I've got this blank to the correct length. Now I need to get it to the correct width. What I've done to mark that is I've taken the two and laid them flat, and I've marked all four corners of the blank that I'm going to replace it with, like this. That gives me a small notch in all four corners. I can file this and get it to the correct width. That got me almost there. I'll finish out on a flat surface with sandpaper. Also, as a side note, I almost never use power tools on bone if I can avoid it. The dust is not healthy at all to breathe. Alright, in a few minutes there, I'm satisfied with this fit. Now it's time to do the rest of the shaping. This Taylor bridge saddle is a little bit wider than most. Of all these saddle blanks that I had on hand, and a couple extras that I ordered to try to get one that was wide enough, this is the only one that's going to be wide enough, and it's still about 6/1000 smaller, or about 1/10 of a millimeter smaller than this Taylor saddle, but I think it's going to be close enough to work. The rest of these are 10/1000ths or more smaller. They're not going to work. These saddles would all wobble side to side in the slot. You can see here that the original Taylor saddle is compensated. Now put the same compensation on the new saddle. Going with some Martin lights from my local music store. So for the nut, I left it rough earlier. Now all the slots are the proper depth, and I need to take the strings off and adjust something on the saddle as well. Drop the saddle action just a little bit. So while the strings are off, I will get the files out and finish out this shape of the nut as well, making sure that when your hand travels over this section here that you don't feel these sharp little nubs off the end, and getting everything a lot closer. This is totally unnecessary, but bone will polish up pretty good. This is up to about 3600 grit right here, and you get a pretty good little reflection off of it. Here you can see the old nut, and here's the new nut. For the final install of this nut, I'll take just a single drop of this medium viscosity super glue right in the center of the nut, and just put it straight down in its slot where it goes. I don't like to do more than 1 or 2 drops because it's pretty common to have to remove a nut from a guitar, and you don't want to take a bunch of wood out there when you knock the nut out. In a lifetime of a guitar, there's no telling how many times you may have to remove this nut. Okay, I've got a couple of lines scribed and a little bit of pencil lead in there to show me where they're at. I am satisfied with that setup now. A lot of work to the nut, a lot of work to the saddle to get it right, several tweaks on the truss rod, all that to be expected. So, with that said and all that done, you can finally install the truss rod cover. This had black screws in it before, but since we went with the gold wire and the gold tuners, I tracked down some gold truss rod cover screws. I do like how Taylor took the time to make sure that a screwdriver fits between the strings when they made the hole placement for this truss rod cover. It's so aggravating working on a guitar and the truss rod screw is directly up underneath the string here at the headstock. So good job on that, Taylor. And just like that, tools are everywhere again. So a round of cleanup, and let's hear this guitar. Oh, I did also polish up the saddle. Alright, so the Taylor with the twisted neck is ready to go. I'm very happy with it. Plays very comfortably. See, I'm very happy with this end result. This went from a guitar with a problem with the neck and a little bit of twisting that was so bad that when you fretted notes, they would buzz out and you couldn't really hear the instrument ring, to now it really rings very well. And also, it went from all those inlays with the sort of ugly patches on them to a much cleaner looking fingerboard. Also the gold frets and gold tuners. It's really a total transformation on this guitar, and I'm very, very pleased with it. Time to get this back to the owner. Thank you all for taking the time to watch. I hope this has been a good use of your time, and I hope you've enjoyed going through this project with me. Let me know in the comments below if you like this format for videos. It's kind of inspired by my friend Sean. When I go visit him, I'll see whatever he's working on and see what's happened next with that project, and this is kind of a way for you to follow along with my projects. Thanks again.